Welcome to this tutorial on how to create a lobby for your multiplayer games using Unity's lobby service. Multiplayer games can be an amazing experience, and having a lobby for your game is crucial to help your players connect and interact with each other before the game begins. In this tutorial, I will show you how to use Unity's lobby service to create a simple lobby for your multiplayer game. We will cover how to set up the lobby, how to create rooms, how to join and leave rooms, and how to customize the lobby user interface. By the end of this tutorial, you will have a basic understanding of how to create a lobby for your multiplayer game using Unity's lobby service. So, let's get started. Project link will be in video description. Feel free to ask any question or write your feedback on comment section. To create lobby, at first we need to install lobby package from Package Manager. Now search lobby package in Unity registry. Here is the lobby package, the latest version is 1.0.3. Let's click on Install. Now lobby package has been installed. Now close the Package Manager window. Now we need to link our project with Unity Service. To link project with Unity Service, let's go to Project Settings. In Project Settings, click on Services. Now select an organization. Now click on Create Project ID. Now Project ID has been created. Let's click on Dashboard to go to Unity Services Dashboard. Now we need to log into Unity Services. After login, Unity Gaming Services page will appear. Inside Unity Gaming Services, click on the Multiplayer section. Now click on Lobby. Now click on Set Up Lobby button inside Lobby section. As our project has already been linked with Unity Service, let's click on Next. We already installed the lobby package, so let's click on Next. Now we need to turn on Lobby to use lobby services in our project. Click on the toggle button to turn on Lobby. And click on Next. You can now install sample for how to use Lobby in project. I shall not install sample. So let's click on Finish. Now the lobby has been set up. Let's go back to Unity Editor. We have created a new scene. Added an empty game object and named it as Lobby Manager. Now we shall create an C# script. Name it as Lobby Manager. Attach the Lobby Manager script to Lobby Manager game object. Let's edit the Lobby Manager script. To use any kind of Unity service, at first we need to initialize Unity service. For that we need to use Unity services.core. Let's initialize the Unity services. We need to add a wait keyword to wait for initialization done. We need to make this function as a synchronous function to use a wait keyword inside it. User must authenticate with Unity service to use Unity lobby service. To authenticate with Unity service, we need to use Unity services.authentication. Inside start method we shall do the authentication. There are different approaches to authenticate with Unity services. We can authenticate using third-party services like Google Play Games, Apple, Facebook, and we can also use custom authentication. But Unity also provide anonymous sign-in. In this type of authentication, user will don't know that they are signed in. We shall use anonymous sign-in to authenticate with Unity services. For that need to use authentication services.instances. Sign in anonymous async. This is also an awaitable method. So let's add a wait keyword. We shall print player ID. As soon as signed in with Unity services, we will add function to signed in action. Let's create a string variable for player ID. We shall get the player ID from authentication service after signed in. We shall assign that ID with this player ID. Let's go to Unity editor and test. We can see that player has been signed in at the start. And here is player ID. Now we have created a main menu panel. In main menu there is a button named Create Lobby. We have created another panel named Create Room panel. This panel will open when player will click on Create Lobby button in main menu. In this Create Room panel, there is an input field for room name, one input field for max player's number, and a button to create the room. Now we shall create serialized field for two input fields and one button of Create Room panel. Let's go to Unity editor and assign these fields. Assign room name input field to room name if. Assign max players input field to max players if. And also assign the Create Room button. Let's come back to script. Now we shall write a function to create lobby. Let's create a private void function and name it as Create Lobby. Let's call Create Lobby async method of lobby service class. For that we need to use the unity.services.lobby namespace. In Create Lobby async method we need to send lobby name and max player's number as parameter. We will assign the room name input field's text to lobby name string. Now we will parse the max player's number input field's text to integer and assign it to max player's integer. Now pass the lobby name and max players to Create Lobby async method. We need to add a wait keyword to this asynchronous method and we need to make this Create Lobby method as async. Now we will print the created lobby ID in console. We shall assign the created lobby in a lobby type variable. Naming the variable as current lobby. Now we shall print current lobby.id. Now we shall call this Create Lobby function when Create Room button will be clicked. Let's come back to Unity editor and test. I have made this already that when we shall click the Create Lobby button on main menu, the Create Room panel will be activated. Now we need to enter a room name and max player's number, and click on Create Room button. We can see that room has been created and here is the room ID. Now we have created another panel named Room Panel. This panel will be shown when player will create or join a room. In this room panel, members can see room name and room code. Now again we are in Lobby Manager script. It's a good practice to use try-catch block to write every type of Unity service codes. We shall print any kind of lobby service exception in console. Now we shall create reference for room panel game object. And 2 references for room name text and room code text. We also need references for create room panel game object and main menu panel game object to hide and show these panel. Now in Unity Editor we shall assign these serialized fields of Lobby Manager. Now we shall write an private void function named enter room. In this function we shall hide main menu panel and create lobby panel. And we shall show the room panel. Now we shall assign room name and room code text of room panel. At first we need to make current lobby variable as global, so that we can access it from other methods. Now we shall call this enter room function as soon as lobby will be created. Disabling the room panel. Main menu is first screen. Let's run. Let's click on create lobby. Now we shall create a room. Let's give a name and enter max players number. Room created. And we can see the room panel with room name and room code. Now we shall write a function to get list of all available public lobbies. Naming this function as list public lobbies. Now inside try block we shall call query lobbies async method of lobby service.instance. Similarly we need to add a wait keyword. And need to make this function async. Query lobbies async method returns query response type variable. We can get list of lobbies using response.result. Response.result is a list of lobby type variable. We shall print number of available lobbies. And we shall print the name and room code of each available lobbies. Now we shall add a button to call this list public lobbies function. On click list lobbies button. We shall call the list public lobbies function. Now we have created a button in main menu named Get Lobbies List. We shall assign this button in Lobby Manager at List Lobbies button field. Now we shall create a build to test. Make sure to add the scene in build settings. Now we are running 2 instances. Let's create a room on build side. Room has been created. Let's click on Get Lobbies List button on Unity Editor side. We have created a room but we are getting no lobby in response. Because I have clicked the Get Lobbies List button after some time of creating the room. And the room will be inactivated if host does not send heartbeat. Only member of a room can access room of an inactive lobby. But public will not found the room. Now we shall write code so that host will send heartbeat after each 15 seconds. Because room will be inactivated after 30 seconds if host does not send heartbeat. Only member can see lobby code, public only can see the lobby ID. Now we shall write a function to handle heartbeat. We shall create a float variable for heartbeat timer. At first we shall check if current lobby is not null. We shall decrease the heartbeat timer in each update. And if the heartbeat timer is 0 then host will send heartbeat. Host will call send heartbeat ping async function and pass current lobby ID to it. As host can only send heartbeat. So we'll shall check if this player is host or not. Let's write a function is host. If this player ID and host ID is same, then this function will return true. Else it will return false. We shall call isHost function. If it returns true, host will send heartbeat. Now we shall call this handle lobby heartbeat function in update. Now again running 2 instances. Creating a room in the build side. Let's click on the Get Lobbies List button on Unity Editor. Now we can see that available lobbies number is 1. And we can see the name and ID of the lobby. We can find the created lobby even after 30 seconds. As host is sending heartbeat to keep the lobby alive. Now we want to show all the available lobby info in a scroll view. For that we have added a scroll view in main menu. We shall add all the available lobbies info under the content of scroll view. We have added a vertical layout group and a content size fitter to the content game object. Now we have created an UI for showing room detail. We shall instantiate this UI for all available lobbies. This UI has a button and 2 texts field to show lobby name and player's number. Now we shall make a prefab of this UI. We have created prefab. Now we shall delete the lobby info UI from hierarchy. Now we need to create a serialized field for the lobby info prefab. Now we shall write a function to visualize the lobbies list. Giving name as visualize lobby list. This function will take a list of lobbies as input parameter. Now for each lobby in the public lobbies list, we shall instantiate lobby info UI. We shall make all the instantiated lobby info as child of content of scroll view. For that we need to create a reference for content. Now in Unity Editor we need to assign the prefab and content in Lobby Manager. We shall pass content.transform to instantiate method. It will make the instantiated game object as child of content. Now we shall assign the room name and player's number to the new lobby info UI. We will get joined player numbers by subtracting available slots from max player's number. Now we shall call this visualize lobby list function from get public lobbies list function. Again we are running two instances of our game. Let's create a lobby on build side. Let's click on Get Lobbies List button on Unity Editor. Now we can see the lobbies list. Here we can see only one public lobby named Moonland. Now we shall implement that. Any player can join a lobby by clicking on a lobby info. In the visualize lobby list function at first we shall clear the previous lobby info list. For that we need to destroy all the children of lobbies info content game object. Now when player will click on a lobby info then player will join the lobby. For that we need to get the button component of the lobby info and add on click listener. Let's write a join lobby function. Player need to use join lobby using lobby ID. For that we will pass the lobby ID of the lobby displayed by a lobby info in lobbies list. As soon as player will join we shall call enter room function. And we will print the player's number in the room. Join lobby by ID async will return a lobby and we are assigning that returned lobby in current lobby. Now call join lobby function on click of lobby info. Now we are running two instances. Created a room at build side. Now we can see the lobby info by getting lobbies list. Now if we click on the lobby info, we shall join and enter the lobby. We have entered the room. And we can see player's number is 2. Now we want to list all the players' name in the room. For that we have added a scroll view inside room. We shall add all the players' name UI under content of scroll view. Content has vertical layout group and content size fitter component attached to it. We have created a UI for displaying player's name. This player info UI panel has a text component to display player name. Now we shall make a prefab of the player info UI. And we shall delete this UI from the hierarchy. Now we shall hide the room panel. Let's go to main menu panel. In the main menu we shall add a input field where player can type their name. Now we need to edit the script. At first we shall create reference for player name input field in main menu. Now we shall create reference for player info prefab and player info container game object in scroll view. Now in Unity Editor we need to assign these references. Let's assign the player info prefab from prefabs folder. Now assign the scroll view content game object in the player info content field. Now add the player name input field in the player name IF field. At first we need to save player name when player will enter name on the input field. We shall set the input text in a player pref. At start we shall set the player name input field text with player pref name key. Now if we want to see members name of a room, then somehow we need to pass the player name at the time of creating or joining lobby. To set various information at the time of creating, we have create lobby option class. We can pass create lobby options at the time of lobby creation. We can see in create lobby class there is a boolean variable is private and player variable for player information and a data dictionary for other custom data. Now let's go to the player class. In player class there is ID, connection info, data etc. but no field for name. We can use the data field to send custom data like player name, experience, or any other information. We shall write a function which will return a player type variable. Let's create a player type private function and name it as getPlayer. We shall create a string variable for player name. We shall assign the name player pref in this player name variable. If someone don't give right name in name input field, then we shall show their ID instead of name. Let's create player variable and set data. Data is a dictionary with string type key and player data object type value. We can set any number of data in the dictionary. But here we shall only add the player name field. The key will be player name. And the value will be a new player data object. Player data object has two parameters. One for visibility option and another for the value of player name. In the value we shall send the player name which takes value from player prefs. Now let's go to create lobby function. Now we shall make a create lobby options with player. We shall assign getPlayer to player of create lobby options object. GetPlayer will return player object with current player's info. Now we shall pass the options object to create lobby async method. Similarly we shall create join lobby options inside join lobby method. For join lobby options we need to use join lobby by ID options as we are joining lobby by ID. Now inside enter room function we shall print the lobby member's name. We are taking each player from current player.players and printing name. Now we are testing. Let's create a room on the build side. And join the room from Unity side. As soon as we shall join, we can see each player's name in console. Here we can see the player ID as player name because players has not set the name. Now we shall test again by setting the name. This time we shall set name before creating and joining room. Now we can see member's name instead of ID. Now we shall show player's name in the room using player info prefab. Now we shall write a function to visualize player's info in room, named it as visualize room details. Now we shall instantiate player info prefab for each player in the current room. We shall make all instantiated player info as child of player info content. Now we need to get the text component of new player info game object. Then assign player name value from player data to the text component. If there is any previous player's info in the room, we need to clear that at first. For that we can destroy all children of player info content. Now we shall call this visualize room details when players enter room. Now again we are testing. On build side we are creating room. Now as soon as player enters the room they can see member's name. Let's join that room in editor side. Now as we enter room, we can see all members' name, but we can see earlier joined players' room details has not been changed. For that we need to get updated lobby after few moments and need to show that. Now let's create a function for handling lobby update. Name it as handle room update. Now we need to call get lobby async, for that we shall use try catch block. Now we need a float variable for room update timer. We did similar for handling heartbeat. Now we shall call get lobby async. And we shall assign the updated lobby in current lobby variable. We need to send ID of lobby for which lobby we want to get inside get lobby async function. Here is the rate limit for all lobby service call. We can see that we can call get lobby method only after 1 seconds. We shall call getLobby after each 1.5 seconds so that rate limit doesn't exceed. Now we shall call this handle room update function from update. Also we need to check if current lobby is not null, only then we shall update room details. Let's create a room and test. Now we can see the previous joined players room also being updated. But we are getting an error that rate limit exceeded. For that we shall call the getLobby method after each 2 seconds. Now we have added a leave room button inside room. Player can leave lobby by clicking on this leave room button. At first we shall create a serialized field for this leave room button. Now we need to assign the leave room button on Lobby Manager. Now we shall write a function, name it as leave room. We need to call remove player async method for removing a player from lobby. We need to pass lobby ID and player ID as input to remove lobby async method. Now we have created a exit room function. Inside exit room function we shall hide the room panel and active main menu panel. After calling remove player async, we shall call exit room function. Now we need to add on click listener to leave room button at start. Now let's make inactive the room panel and active the main menu panel. Let's test the leave room button. Let's click on leave room button on host side. Successfully host left the room. When host will leave lobby, then next member will be automatically be the host. Now we are getting null reference error because we are still calling getLobby async after leaving the room. Now we need to check whether player is in the lobby or not. If player is in the room only, then we shall call getLobby async. Now we shall write a function to check whether this player is in lobby or not. Let's make a private function which will return bool, name it as is in lobby. Now we will check if this player ID matches with any player ID in lobby. If matches, then it will return true, else it will make current lobby as null and return false. Now we shall call this function before calling getLobbyAsync. It's a good practice to check player is in room before accessing the current lobby. Let's test. Room has been created. Now if we leave the room we'll not get null reference error. We got errors for rate limit exceeded, not for null reference. We can fix this by increase the lobby service call timer, this not a problem. Now we shall add a kick button to player info prefab. Only host will be able to see the kick member button. This button will be inactive by default. Now we shall write a kick player function. We need to call the same remove player async function but with that player ID whom host wants to kick, not this player ids. Now inside visualize room details method we shall check if this is host, then activate kick button and add this kick player function to that button. After a player kicked by host will exit room. Let's test again. Now in host side we are getting null reference error. Because no button in children found. As button is inactive by default we can't get by calling get component in children. We need to pass true as parameter so that it will count the inactive child also. Now we are testing again. Now host can see kick button for all members. But here host can see a kick button for ownself also. We'll check if the player info is for host, then host will not see the kick button. We will check if that member ID is not host ID, then show kick button. Now we can see host can see the kick button only for other members. Till now we are creating and joining public lobby. Now we shall see how to create and join a private lobby. We shall add a toggle button inside Create Room panel to make a room public or private. We can check in this is private toggle to create a private room. At first we need to create a serialized field for the is private toggle button of Create Room panel. Now in editor we need to assign toggle of Lobby Manager. Now we can assign is private parameter of Create Lobby options to true or false. In this case we shall assign the is on variable of toggle. This means if the is private toggle is on, then room will be created as private, otherwise as public. Let's create a private lobby. Private room has been created. Now let's click on the Get Lobbies list button on Build. We can see that we cannot get the private lobbies by query. So we cannot see private lobbies by clicking on Get Lobbies button. We can join a private lobby using the lobby code. We need to create an UI where player can enter room code to join a private lobby. Here is an input field for lobby code. When we shall click on the Join Lobby with Code button, then the Join Room with Code panel will pop up. At first we need to create serialized fields for the room code input field and for the Join Room button. Now we need to assign these fields in Unity Editor. Let's assign the room code input field at room code if of Lobby Manager. And assign the Join button to Join Room button field. Now we shall write a Join Lobby with Code function that is similar to our previous Join Lobby function. Let's copy the Join Lobby function and paste it. We shall change the name of new function as Join Lobby with Code. We don't need to pass any argument, we shall take room code from the input field. Now we need to change Join Lobby by ID options to Join Lobby by Code options. Now we need to change the Join Lobby by ID async method to Join Lobby by Code async. Now we shall pass room code and options. Now when player will click on the Join Room button of Join Room panel, then we shall call this function. Let's go to Start method and add on Click Listener to Join Room button. so we can join private lobby by code. Now we shall create a serialized field for join lobby panel game object. Because when player will enter or exit room we need to keep the join room panel inactive. Now make the join room panel as inactive in enter room and exit room function. For private lobby we cannot access player ID after leaving the room. In the isInLobby function we were checking that whether current player ID matches with any one of the members of lobby or not. If no ID matches then we considered current player is not in lobby. But for a private lobby if current player is not in lobby and try to access player's data then they will get error. One method to know that host has kicked from private room and need to exit room, is that we shall get lobby not found error or forbidden error if tried to get updated info of that lobby. If we get these error we can call exit room function and make the current lobby as null. Now we need to assign join room game object serialized field of lobby manager. Let's create a private room. Let's join that private room. Let's kick the joined player from host side. We can see when host kicked, that player successfully left the lobby because an forbidden error occurred. Now we have added a start game button inside the room. This button will be visible only to host. When host will start the game then other members will show this button as enter game button to enter the game. During lobby creation we can add a custom data to check game has started or not. So we need to assign data of create lobby options class. As data is a dictionary, so we need to give key and value pair. Let's as game started will be the key. And we need to create new data object for value. I am setting visibility as member and let's make the value as false which is a string. Let's create a serialized field for the start game button. when host will click on Start Game button. The is game started value will be updated to true. Let's create a function as Start Game. We need to create an update lobby options object in which we need to assign updated value of the data. We will make the is game started keys value as true. Now we shall call update lobby async method with current lobby ID and the update options object. We are assigning the updated lobby returned by update lobby async method in current lobby. We shall check current lobby is not null before calling update lobby async, and we need to keep this inside try catch block, and this function will only be called by host as host will only start the game. After clicking on Start Game, host will enter in game and other members will see a Enter Game button. For that we will write a function to check host has started the game or not. Is game started method will return true if the is game started key value of data is true. Now we will call Start Game method when host will click on the Start Game button. Inside the Visualize Room Details method we shall check if the current player is host, then active the Start Game button and add the Start Game method as onClick Listener. And if the player is not host we shall check if game has started. If game started then we'll show the Enter Game button. Let's create a serialized field for game panel game object. Now we shall write a Enter Game function. In this function we can do anything like scene load or changing panel when host will click on Start Game button and other members will click on Enter Game button. We will call this function from Start Game function after is game started key updated to true by host. And we will add this Enter Game function as onClick Listener at client's side. If game not started we need to hide the button and remove all listeners from button at client sides. We have created this simple game panel. When Enter Room function will be called then this panel will be set as active. Now we need to assign Game Panel field and Start Button field of Lobby Manager. By default Start Game button will be inactive. Let's test again. We can see there is start button at host side. Let's join from build side. There is no start game button at client side. Let's click on start game at host side. As soon as host clicked on start game, game panel opened and we can see a enter room button at client side. We can ignore rate limit exceed error. We can click on enter game button on client side to enter game. We can remove this is private checking from handle room update function, because player will be left if forbidden or lobby not found error occurs even in public lobby. We are refreshing lobbies list after clicking on Get Lobbies List button. But now we want to refresh lobbies list automatically after few seconds. So we do not need this button, we'll hide this button. Here is the list public lobbies function. We will call this function after each 2 seconds. Let's create a float variable and name it as update lobbies list timer. Now let's create a function to handle lobbies list update. Now we need to call this handle lobbies list update function from update. Now let's have a look to this whole script so that you can write the code easily. Let's test again. We can see that public list are automatically being updated on main menu.